And that's when the 20-year Marine police officer came in, the 20-year Marine FBI agent came in. When I went to the police chief of the police, Chief Wall, who's a very nice man, I have a friend who got me in to see him. He said, "This is big. This is way over my head." But he assigned a wonderful man named Bill Dean to me to call any time. And I must say, this is a wonderful man. I could call Bill Dean any time. And, I mean, there are some good people, probably in the Masons, I don't know, but there are some good people. But the problem was, he can't control it. Now, why, if you're a Mason, why can't you control battering of military wives? That's a question I ask myself. Why is it that they cannot control a perpetrator who's killed his first wife, and I've nearly been murdered, Aggie, and Grover Wright, who battered his first wife, Lynn? They spread the word that she's crazy. Lynn Wright is not crazy. Grover Wright was running around with Ann Wood and wound up marrying her, and Ann Wood is now a blimp. Grover Wright is a perpetrator. Moore is a perpetrator. He's now married to a girl who's in my garden club. And, you know, he was a commando, guerrilla. His father was a general in the Coast Guard, which the mayor's husband is a colonel, a captain, whatever, captain in the Coast Guard. And it's not the CIA. Well, George calls it, in his diary, he calls it members of the firm. He called it brotherhood. He mentioned the old guard, Army. It's Army. And it's White House. But the presidents don't know about it necessarily. Yeah, the way George talked about Oswald was the way when you communicate with an alcoholic like that when he's drinking, and he's been totally battered, mind-controlled, but is fed lots of money, being poor and so forth. A woman, 55% of what people say is verbal. And then you learn to read the nonverbal. George's diarrhea of the mouth. Verbal. But when I mentioned, it's like when I mentioned the word General Jim Joy, I knew it was General Jim Joy who had authorized the terrorism of my life. I know it is General Jim Joy, General Carl Steiner, General Hartzog, General Abram, General Damon, and Sheehan. I know. And Krulak. These men are the ones who are perpetrators. They bugged my phone, downloaded my caller ID. They have authorized and given money to people like Tedson, well, not Tedson Myers, but certainly Alexander Robinson, Ern Reynolds, 4th Marine, JAG, worked for the Justice Department. The Justice Department is involved. There are rogues in the Justice Department who think they are handling people by using cruelty, tricks, psychological games. This is not the way you handle a nation. He did. In fact, he went down there. He went down there with General Gray, with Michael O'Boyle. Oh, he was always going down there. And Michael O'Boyle was going down there when he was going down there. And because I found some things in his papers, because Sue, his first wife, was such an alcoholic. And I have a letter from my husband which admits that he was begging her on to drink. Yeah. She was catching on. See, this was the time that all of this Iran-Contra stuff was coming out. The murders, there were things going on with Gorby, what's his name is. Sue had met all these people. They were dealing, see, my husband was a middleman with the weapons deals. He went to London, and Mary Clark Yost Halab, she was Halab, now she's Yost, is involved with the weapons sales business because they went to London. My husband went to London with some of the Marines, with Chuck Shelton, Tom Reap, Bill Ainsley, Al Gray. I don't know whether Dan Deviney went. I don't know whether Bob Redlin went. But Bob Redlin and Dan Deviney told me that my husband was dangerous. This is when I was dating him. Please be careful. Well, I thought they were just jealous. You know, I thought, because I had gone out with Bob Redlin, but Bob Redlin was a major.
Okay.
Anyway, this is it. Oh, Bob Redlin was a major, and Dan Deviney, Bob Redlin was a lieutenant colonel.
Your name is Catherine Pollard Griggs?
Yes.
You are the wife of Colonel George Griggs?
Yes.
11 years of marriage?
Yes.
It's true that your husband is has been the head of special operations under Admiral Kelso, NATO?
Yes.
And it's true that you were the head of the hospitality committee?
Yes.
You were the member of the executive board of NATO's Wives Club?
Absolutely.
And also that your husband's background includes NATO Defense College in Rome?
Yes.
Princeton class of 1959?
Yes.
His intelligence career, spy career, began in Vietnam?
Yes.
And it's also true that it continues under this day?
Absolutely, under General Wilhelm.
And that your husband was the liaison between the White House and President Jamal of Beirut, Lebanon, at the time of the bombing of the Marine barracks in Lebanon?
Yes.
And in fact, your husband was an alcoholic.
Absolutely.
And probably
Incredible.
is to this day.
Absolutely.
And during these drunken stupors, he would, so to speak, blab on and tell you everything he knew about the intelligence community.
Everything.
Nothing was hid.
No.
It was like he wanted to relieve himself and unburden his heart.
Yes.
And so he told you everything that you now know about the
Yes.
intelligence community.
Yes.
And that you are talking about. And in fact, he told you that they knew the bombing was coming down in
Yes.
Beirut before it occurred.
Absolutely.
And also, by your association with him, you have come to understand and know, that this, as shocking as this may sound to the people who are viewing this, that the United States military is literally run by sexual deviants heavy on the homosexual side.
Truly.
And that in the United States military, people like Jeffrey Dahmer and Kaczynski and McVeigh and Oswald and a host of other people who have a sexual deviant background, primarily homosexual, these individuals are actually sought out by people within the military, the Army, for advancement into intelligence type work because they are so easy to control.
Yes.
And they actually become mind slaves, and that the U.S. military, literally, as outrageous as it sounds, is a mind control operation.
Yes, totally now. Totally now. They've gotten rid of the good folks, like MacArthur. Got rid of them. Well, my husband, when the first 3 years we were married, he was drinking 3 or 4 straight gins, vodkas a night, a bottle of wine, and a beer machine beside his desk. I only knew him 2 months before he asked me to marry him. He'd been married before, and his first wife was a total alcoholic.
Now, someone would ask, why would you marry a man after knowing him only 2 months?
I'm a strong Protestant Christian, and I have a lot of predestination. I'm a Scottish grandmother, and I was working as assistant director of the Chamber of Commerce. I had a brand new, relatively new Saab, my first car. It was an 83 Saab. I bought it secondhand from somebody who's 84. And my husband was driving an 83 Saab. Mine was a turbo, his was not. He rented part of my house. It was, I had a young doctor and his wife and 2 children who were renting the house. They were leaving before the end of the lease time, and they put the ad in the paper and told me about all these people, and I said, no, 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 no. And I was, had been engaged to someone else. You know, I was just renting my house out. And they said that there was this man who had a dog and a mother-in-law and a son, and was a widower and a Marine colonel. Well, and had a dog, and I said, no, absolutely not. So the point that I'm trying to make is that he was someone I was not really, I didn't cotton to. He sort of acted like a robot. He was very clipped, and I didn't want to like him. But when I heard he was a Princeton graduate, I always thought that was kind of great. When I heard he spoke fluent French, and I speak fluent French, when I found out that he drove a Saab, I drove a Saab. And when I found out that he went to the same school, high school, that my uncle had gone to, was in the same eating club at Princeton that my Uncle Ben had gone to. He was on scholarship and went to Princeton. Everything the same as my uncle, who was also in intelligence. But I didn't think about that then. I was just thinking, you know, this is God. This is too much, too many similar things. And so it overwhelmed me. And he's very, very good looking. At that time, he was very good looking. Now he's aged and he really is haggard. Yeah. So I was overwhelmed by him. Plus, my job at the chamber was very demanding. I was doing a great job. But he said that he wanted me to retire because he wanted to make general. And the man who could make him general was General Louis Buell, because it was just a matter of having somebody who would make you general, to be general. It wasn't what you did. Louis just happened to die, and we went to his funeral, and George didn't make it because Louis died. But his first wife had been, I'm sure, battered to death. I was battered, and